mild degree thinking we're a couple of blubbering morons here. I will say, have you ever had a high ankle sprain, Mitchell?
Oh, yeah, I've had my fair share.
They're the worst. I've heard they're I never have. Can you be better a week later?
You can be. I mean, I saw that footage along with you. He looks like he's moving well. I would say he didn't break stride, I think, is the biggest thing. You know, he took that first step with the left going down, but the last step, all the weight's on the right. He looks pretty good. I'd imagine he's maybe doing that for a purpose to try to show people that he is feeling pretty good. Okay. So pretty good news.
Now, Mitchell, you've been in these big games with Kansas City, Andy Reid, and Mahomes. Is practice different? Andy loves these big moments to show off a little bit. He'll bring out one of his plays. Is practice different for these games?
No, it's pretty much the same. I mean, the schedule stays the same. The work is the same, kind of the way you go about the week, the way you install. All of that tends to be the same. It's just a bit of a heightened energy because you know, if you lose, this is the end of it. And especially this particular game, we're able to get to the Super Bowl if you win and then going up against what's now a new rival. But you try to keep, as much as you can the same. You try to eliminate the exterior distractions. I think that's one of the biggest things that coach is big on is, eliminate those distractions just when you're in the building, really focus in.
In terms of Andy and Mahomes, this is still very much a honeymoon period. When they had to let Tyreek Hill go and the corner award, that is the reality of paying your quarterback a lot. Are you surprised at all how it's been so seamless they rebuilt a defense in a year, an O-line in a year, and a receiving core in a year. Having had multiple coaches, how does Andy, that's usually situationally, Mitchell, it's hard. It's a different, guys are coming from all over the league. Are you surprised that the offense remained best in the league despite, over the last 2 years, between O-line and receiver, there's like 9 new starters?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And the thing I expected was maybe this isn't the best offense in the NFL this year. Maybe it's, the third best, the fourth best, the fifth best. But because you're able to draft 2 guys in the first round on defense, because you're able to keep bolstering that side of the ball, maybe the defense gets into the top 15, the top 10, you become a bit more balanced of a team. Well, that hasn't necessarily been the case. It's been the offense, the number one offense in basically any category you can look at, both, traditional statistics and advanced metrics. And the defense has progressed well in the second half of the season. But it's kind of crazy that they're able to be this good and losing the guys that you mentioned, being able to rebuild, a receiver group on the fly. Last year, being able to rebuild an offensive line group on the fly. That's not the way it's supposed to go, and you're not supposed to go 14-3 and get the 1 seed. So testament to coach, testament to Pat, and also to Travis as well, because I think we're realizing, he's such an integral part of what the offense does.
Burrow 3-0 against Mahomes. What is the matchup? For the record, I believe Kansas City has led big in 2 of those games. So it's not like, but there is something about Cincinnati that Buffalo maybe doesn't have. Your takeaway on what's the little secret sauce for Cincinnati or the matchup that works here?
It seems like defensively they're able to do something to frustrate the Chiefs offense. And last year was probably the Chiefs' quote-unquote down year, which is kind of crazy to think about. And we saw for about a 4 to 5 week stretch that teams were frustrating the Chiefs' offense, and there would be these weird games where the offense couldn't get out of a rut. They couldn't continue possessions. They were punting a little bit more than normal. And it seems like Cincinnati's really honed in on whatever that magic formula is to frustrate the Chiefs offense. They can only rush 3 and they have 8 guys in coverage and no one's open, and they're able to get home with protection. When they are blitzing, they're effective. They're getting free runners and they're forcing Pat to get rid of it. And so there's this kind of frustrating bit of football that the Bengals defense seems to have over the Chiefs offense. And as you said, the Chiefs have been up early in a lot of these games. It's just the frustration starts to mount in the third and fourth quarter. Obviously, we know Burrow's a cool customer, and he just keeps marching down the field, and he keeps scoring points, and they've come out on top in the first 3 matchups.
Mitchell, you were in the middle of this as the league became much more of an offensive league. We had Kyle Van Noy on yesterday saying, when you go back to his first year in the league and now, everybody's willing to go over the middle. Tight ends, receivers. I can remember when I was younger, there was a term called alligator arms that receivers did not want to go over the middle. And if you had a Michael Irvin, it was so rare to have a guy that was willing to get his head knocked off, right? Now everybody goes over there. You can't hit anybody. and you've been in the middle of this pivot. So 7 of the last 8 coaches were offensive coaches. Sean McDermott was the last one, and they had no offensive game plan. Zach Taylor took them to the woodshed. It was really no identity, no game plan, deep balls up the sideline in a snowstorm. Basketball, I've always feel like you've got to be a little patient with coaches because you can't fix a team in a draft because you're drafting kids. They're 18, 19. In the NFL, I get you. You're 23. You're ready to start. You're a man. I can go find 5 starters, good starters, in an NFL draft. You can't do that in an NBA draft. So I tend to be, in basketball, just let the Celtic thing, the Milwaukee Buck thing, just be patient. But the NFL is different. When you look at the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy, when you look at the Bills, Sean McDermott, when you have these penalties, we talked about it yesterday. Do we sound crazy saying Sean McDermott felt like he just doesn't quite get where the league's gone? Does that sound crazy for somebody that spent a decade in the league?
I think at first glance, it does sound crazy because you're like, wow, the Bills have been one of the best teams over the last few years. You look at some of the data and they've been the best team this year when you combine all 3 phases. But if you're a Bills fan and you're thinking about it, conceptually the way you are, would you rather have Brian Daboll as the head coach, knowing what Daboll was able to do in New York, knowing that he was the one to unlock Josh Allen. He was the one apparently to keep him on track, to get him to not make all these crazy plays and not force the ball too much. Would you rather have that guy as the head coach? Because as we've seen with this league, you started to have the Shanahan McVay, and then all of a sudden, hey, we got to get the next hot young offensive coordinator. Well, the reason is offense, like you said, is what football is about. And so if you've got that brilliant mind as the head coach, he never leaves. The offense is always at their peak potential. Yeah. And we're finding it really difficult to be successful as a head coach without that.
The Andy Reid is fascinating to me. I think if you could pick a Super Bowl, it would be Andy Reid against Philadelphia, his old team. How long did it take you, as a pretty heady guy from Cal, how long did it take you when in the Andy Reid you get there, that you knew he was unique offensively? Was it a meeting? Was it a practice? Was it repetition? What was the first thing, Mitchell, that jumped out and you thought, man, this guy is operating at a different level?
It was pretty early because the first thing that stuck out to me is, as a head coach, he wasn't having 10, 15, 20-minute team meetings every single day. You had the team meeting when you showed up in April, and it was like, hey, guys, this is the schedule. This is how it's going to be laid out. We expect you to work hard. These are the goals for the year. And then that was the last time you saw him in a team meeting format until the next phase of the offseason. And where I came from in Cleveland, we pretty much had a new head coach every year. I had 3 and 4 years. And so those guys are trying to meet a bunch. They're trying to instill their culture. They're trying to talk about, reliability and consistency. But coach has that already instilled, whether it's, from the first few years when I wasn't there, or just the way he operates. Like, he tells you, these are the goals, let's go do it. And then offensively, you get to see that really quickly once you get into the install. The level of detail, the screen game in particular sticks out to me because that's an area that, as an offensive lineman, we get to see him install. And you've got different landmarks, you've got different, specificities for the running back, how to exactly place the ball to him to get him up the field at the right angle. There's so much precise detail. And as a guy who didn't know much about, coach's playbook specifically, all I knew was, Andy Reid, Philadelphia, screen game, passing offense. Like, the first time he installed a screen, I was like, all right, I get it. Like, I understand why this works. It's because he's so detailed.
Yeah. Finally, Aaron Rodgers, many are suggesting if he doesn't retire this year, it's close. Brady may retire. So for you or an offensive lineman, it tends to be you had a back injury. It's a physical thing. It's not for quarterbacks usually. But be that as it may, injury or not for you, I always feel like when a player starts talking about retirement, they're probably close. Even before your injury, the interior of that O-line or the O-line period, it beats up your hands. It beats up your shoulders. What was the determining factor if you obviously had an injury? But had you thought about it in your head, like, okay, this is 10 years of getting beat up. Take me to being an older player. You've had a couple injuries. Aaron's had a couple collarbone, breaks or surgeries. Take me to what they're thinking, in your opinion.
Yeah, I think everybody does think about what the end looks like and how much you're willing to endure. And to your point, once you start getting serious along, am I willing to walk away? Is it ready? What's so difficult is doing what you need to do in the off season. Once you get into the season, even if you don't love the grind of it, as an offensive lineman in particular, if you don't love training camp and you don't love, the practice schedule of a normal season, you can still get through it. But it's in March, it's in April when you're like, oh man, I got to go work out today. There's no one around you. There's no friends to go work out with. Are you still willing to put in that kind of commitment? And so I do think most guys, as they reach the end of their career, whether it's, 7 years, whether it's 12 years, whether it's 20, you start to think about the risk reward. Have I made enough money? Do I have the accolades I want? For me, we had won the Super Bowl, and that was one of the lifelong dreams and something that I didn't think was necessarily achievable. And so you think, all right, I've had a pretty good career. I've now won the Super Bowl. I've got these accolades. Like, would I be okay walking away, or is there still something I want to chase? As you said, the injury made it pretty easy for me. If I didn't have that, I don't know how much longer I would have kept playing. But I feel like I walked away very fulfilled because I did have all those things. I did have the Super Bowl. I played on awesome teams. I made a lot of good friends. I made a good amount of money. And so I kind of hit all those checklist things that I didn't feel like I had more to give. I didn't get screwed over by the coach who didn't play me. I had a pretty awesome career of starting every game. So there wasn't any one area where I was like, I need to hang around for this specifically.
Yeah. By the way, you made 4 Pro Bowls. Aaron's got Pro Bowls, MVPs. He's got a ring. He's rich. I mean, I think it's hard to walk away from the money, but to your point, he has checked a lot of boxes, and he obviously has a much broader life beyond football. We know that based on the things he tells us. Mitchell Schwartz, say hi to your brother. It's great seeing you again. By the way, move your head and show everybody that picture behind you. Look at it. There's Mitchell. You don't get many of those.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. The red jersey. Nice and slimming.
Yeah. That's right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.